hidden reality, maybe, that reflects or even inverts our own? Or what about consciousness itself? Thinking of it as a geometrical matrix in hyperdimensional space. I mean, that sounds straight out of science fiction, doesn't it? But these aren't just, poetic metaphors whispered by visionaries like Terence McKenna or William Blake. What if modern geometry and cutting-edge physics could give us a precise, like a non-metaphorical lens to really understand them? What if the very fabric of our deepest experiences, our dreams, our insights, our sense of self, could actually be described with elegant equations, with transformative mathematics, moving us beyond just abstract philosophy to something we can rigorously explore, maybe even interact with?
Yeah, what's truly remarkable here, I think, is how these seemingly abstract concepts, from thinkers like McKenna and Blake, which often resonate with our gut feelings about altered states, how they find a surprisingly robust mathematical grounding. And it's in something as elegant, really, as fundamental as circle inversion. When we combine this geometric insight with, say, the expansive PSUMOT framework, it offers a way to move far beyond just metaphor. It gives us a precise geometric language. We can start describing the dynamic nature of consciousness, the intricate landscape of dreams, maybe even the fundamental structure of reality itself. So instead of just saying, oh, it's like flipping a switch in your mind, we can actually begin to model the precise mechanics of that flip. We can understand what properties get preserved and what that implies for, the information content and the continuity of our experience. This isn't just about drawing parallels. It feels more like uncovering the underlying mathematical structure that unites these seemingly disparate ideas from ancient wisdom right up to contemporary science.
Right, and that's exactly our mission today. We're going to embark on a really deep dive into how a specific geometric transformation, known as circle inversion, can offer a precise model for this mirror world idea. We'll explore how it might illuminate consciousness as a kind of hyperdimensional matrix, explain why dreams and the unconscious might just be the key to unlocking it all, and ultimately what this implies for our minds, our sense of continuity, and maybe the very nature of existence within this grand PSUMOT paradigm. So yeah, prepare for a truly mind-bending journey, because we're about to explore how ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science are converging in truly unexpected and, well, mathematically coherent ways. So let's begin by setting our conceptual stage. For centuries, right, across cultures and disciplines, thinkers, poets, mystics, they've spoken of realms just beyond our immediate everyday perception. You take figures like Terence McKenna, famous for his, let's say, profound explorations of altered states, or William Blake, the visionary poet and artist whose works were just saturated with references to unseen dimensions. Both of them, in their own unique ways, hinted at what they called a mirror world, or maybe an inverted reality. They didn't describe it as some completely separate, inaccessible dimension, but more like an inverted configuration of our normal perception, kind of a flipped version of what we know, where familiar laws might bend and new relationships emerge. These realms, they suggested, are often accessed through altered states, deep meditation, or maybe by diving into the mysterious, often kind of illogical landscape of the unconscious mind. Blake, for instance, he famously spoke of perceiving through the doors of perception, suggesting our everyday reality is just a filtered version, and beyond those filters lies a richer, maybe more inverted truth. And McKenna, well, with his vivid stories of entering hyperdimensional spaces under certain influences, truly painted a picture of stepping into these profoundly reconfigured realities. But here's the really intriguing question for you listening right now. What if there was a rigorous mathematical way, a precise geometric method, to describe the experience of stepping into such an inverted reality? What if this isn't just subjective, ineffable, but a structured, definable transformation we can actually model?
Precisely. And this isn't about dismissing these experiences as just, fantasy or something. If we really connect this to the broader scientific goal of understanding consciousness, we can approach these concepts with rigorous frameworks. We can move beyond the purely subjective and into the realm of the quantifiable. The unconscious mind itself, for instance. You could quite literally see it as a potential mirror world. It's a realm where our usual rules of linear logic, spatial reasoning, even time, often just don't apply. It's where symbols and archetypes hold sway, where personal and collective stories intertwine in really unexpected ways. This unconscious space is always accessible to us, though usually hidden from our immediate conscious awareness, right? Various states of awareness, like those naturally induced by dreams, deep meditation, or even certain carefully controlled protocols, can act as gateways to this internal mirror world. The fundamental idea here is that this mirror world isn't necessarily someplace external to us, but rather an internal configuration of our own consciousness. One that can be accessed, navigated, and crucially understood through specific, mathematically describable transformations. Okay, so to really grasp how this mirror world can be modeled, we need to introduce a truly fascinating geometric concept, circle inversion. It's a fundamental nonlinear geometric transformation, and that sets it apart from the more common linear transformations we usually think about, like rotation or moving something or resizing it, things that don't change the fundamental relationships. The core property of circle inversion is its direct and profound inside-outside flipping of the entire plane with respect to a defined reference circle. We just call that the inversion circle. Let me try to illustrate this simply. Imagine you draw a perfect circle on a piece of paper. That's your inversion circle. Now, pick any point inside that circle. When you apply the inversion transformation, that point gets mapped mathematically to a new point outside the circle. And conversely, any point outside the circle gets mapped to a point inside it. What about points directly on the inversion circle itself? Well, those points remain completely fixed. They act as a kind of stable boundary, a threshold between these two flipped realms. It's a complete spatial reordering, but it's entirely coherent. Think of it intuitively like turning a glove inside out. The material of the glove is still there, right? Its inherent structure hasn't changed, but its configuration is entirely reversed. Or, if you remember old school photography, think about a photographic negative. The light and dark values are inverted, the image is transformed, but all the essential information, the structure, the relationships between elements are still perfectly there, just in a different guise. That's the power of inversion. Mathematically, this transformation is governed by a precise and, well, really elegant relationship. Ri is UC OA. OOA. Here, r is just the radius of our inversion circle. O is the center of the circle. A is our original point, and OA is its distance from the center. A is the inverted point, and OA is its distance from the center. This formula tells us that the product of the distances from the center to the original point and its inverted partner is always equal to the square of the radius of the inversion circle. It's not approximation. It's a precise one-to-one mapping. This precision makes circle inversion an incredibly powerful tool in pure geometry. It can simplify complex problems, like transforming circles into straight lines or vice versa, to find really elegant solutions.
Okay, now here's where it truly becomes mind-bending. This is where the rubber meets the road, as they say. How does this purely geometric flip, this elegant inside-out transformation of a, let's say, two-dimensional plane, how does that apply to something as subjective, as intangible, and seemingly, well, amorphous as our own minds, our consciousness, or this profound concept of a mirror world? We're talking about mathematical formulas potentially describing our deepest inner experiences, our shifts in perception. It sounds like a huge conceptual leap. But the sources we're diving into suggest there are concrete, maybe even neurological parallels that make this connection far more than just, a simple analogy. How do we bridge that gap from pure geometry to the messy, vivid reality of our inner lives? Hashtag tag 1.3. Consciousness transitions and the mirror world experience.
Right, and this is where the truly profound connections start to emerge, moving from abstract geometry to lived experience. We can directly link circle inversion's fundamental inside-outside flipping to modeling very specific experiential shifts in consciousness. This geometric transformation naturally provides a model for the shift from what we might call an embodied local consciousness state, our everyday here and now awareness, firmly rooted in our physical body and immediate surroundings, to a non-local consciousness state. This shift is vividly described in a vast body of research, particularly in studies involving substances like DMT, which is integral to what's been termed the DMT decoupling protocol. Individuals undergoing these experiences frequently report profound shifts in perception and awareness, a powerful sensation of stepping outside their normal reality, sometimes even perceiving their own body or environment from an external viewpoint. The mirror world can, in this context, be rigorously understood as this outside or inverted configuration of consciousness's usual inside state, not just a poetic metaphor, but a geometrically structured and, as we'll see, neurologically correlated shift. What's even more compelling, and really grounds this geometrically, are the striking neurological correlates observed during these intense DMT states. They align remarkably well with our inversion model. Neuroimaging studies using things like fMRI and EEG consistently show a profound decoupling of brain networks and something called network desegregation. Normally, our brain operates with a highly hierarchical and segregated organization, right? Distinct networks specialized for different tasks, like departments in a company. But during these altered states, this normal, rigid organization breaks down significantly. Mathematically, this breakdown and subsequent reorganization directly corresponds to the flipping of interior and exterior regions in geometric inversion. This allows previously separate neural regions or even entire brain networks to integrate and communicate in entirely new, non-hierarchical ways. It's not just a vague comparison. It's a structural reorganization of how information flows within the brain, perfectly mirrored by the geometric transformation. It means the brain's architecture literally seems to reconfigure itself in a way that matches the geometric description of an inversion. Building on that, there's an even more fascinating phenomena observed in these states, sometimes called directional reversal or antenna retuning. During DMT experiences, there's a well-documented shift in traveling wave patterns in the brain. Typically, our brain shows predominant backward traveling waves. These are thought to be crucial for predictive processing, our brain constantly anticipating sensory input, building a model of reality. However, under the influence of DMT, this pattern reverses significantly. It shifts to predominantly forward traveling waves, which are normally associated with processing actual sensory input from the external world. This suggests the brain literally inverts its normal information processing direction. It's as if the brain's internal compass for perceiving and constructing reality just spins 180 degrees. This antenna retuning effect allows the brain to generate internally produced perceptual experiences. Think of the incredibly vivid, intricate, often alien landscapes people report that paradoxically possess the geometric structure of external perception, but from an inverted standpoint. This offers a direct, physical, and neurologically measurable mechanism for perceiving a mirror world. Your brain physically reorienting its processing, like a radio retuning to a hidden frequency, to access an inverted reality or maybe a different kind of information field.
Wow, so it's far more than just a feeling or a subjective report. There's compelling neurological evidence that our brains are literally retuning and reconfiguring themselves to perceive an inverted reality. Imagine your internal compass spinning a full 180 degrees, and suddenly the entire landscape of your mind, your perception of reality, is completely reconfigured, yet with an underlying structure that remains coherent, albeit transformed. That is truly astonishing. If our everyday consciousness is typically filtering or predicting, what does this antenna retuning suggest about the sheer potential of our minds to interact with different facets of reality? For you, the listener, this offers a truly scientific way to understand profound altered states, and maybe even our everyday dreams. It suggests they aren't merely random neurological noise, but are structured, geometrically coherent transformations of consciousness, like an intricate roadmap, maybe, to these inner mirror worlds and the information they contain. Okay, that's a wild and incredibly specific thought for the mirror world concept, showing a precise mechanism for a perceptual flip. But how do we make the jump from that, a seemingly 2D or 3D inversion, to the more abstract yet equally profound notion from McKenna and Blake? Consciousness as a geometrical matrix in a hyperdimensional space. I mean, that sounds incredibly complex, almost like stepping into science fiction. We're talking about going beyond our familiar three spatial dimensions and trying to wrap our heads around consciousness existing in a geometric structure that's way more intricate, more expansive than anything we usually imagine. How does the elegant act of flipping a circle inside out scale up to something so grand and multifaceted? It feels like a colossal leap, conceptually.
It is a leap, absolutely, but it's a mathematically supported one. What's truly remarkable here is that the principle of circle inversion isn't limited to just two dimensions. It gracefully extends to what we call hypersphere inversion in n-dimensional spaces. So instead of just a 2D plane flipping, imagine an entire sphere of consciousness, or maybe even more abstract, intricate geometric object, transforming itself across many more dimensions than we typically perceive. This provides the robust mathematical structure to model not just simple shifts, but really complex, multidimensional consciousness states and highly coordinated state changes. Each of these on dimensions, well, they could represent different fundamental aspects of consciousness, perhaps attention, memory, emotion, will, different senses, or even deeper, more abstract qualities that contribute to our subjective experience. This allows for far richer, more nuanced, and truly holistic description of our inner experience than our familiar three spatial dimensions can possibly offer. We're not just moving left and right, up and down. We're talking about states of mind shifting across an intricate, multifaceted landscape of meaning and information. And furthermore, there's a powerful mathematical principle known as Liouville's theorem, which provides crucial support for this higher dimensional view. It states that in dimensions 3 or higher, inversive transformations are, quite remarkably, the only angle-preserving mappings. This isn't just some convenient mathematical trick we've stumbled upon. It suggests their fundamental, almost unavoidable role in the dynamics of consciousness, if consciousness operates in higher dimensions. Think of it this way. If you want to stretch, compress, or bend a higher dimensional space, the very fabric of conscious experience, but you absolutely need to keep all its internal angular relationships, all its essential structural connections perfectly intact. Well, then there's only one family of transformations that can do that, and that is inversive transformations. This implies a deep, inherent connection between the very structure of space itself and the way consciousness processes, maintains, and transforms information during its dynamic shifts. It tells us these transformations aren't just an analogy. They might be the bedrock of how such complex, multidimensional information can coherently change.
For you, the listener, this is a truly profound realization, I think. It suggests that our everyday experience of consciousness, our seemingly linear perception of time, our limited spatial awareness, might just be a very small, simplified slice, maybe a particular projection, of a much larger, infinitely more geometrically intricate reality. It implies that our brains, our minds, could be inherently capable of navigating a vastly more complex inner universe than we typically realize, perhaps even tapping into these hyperdimensional structures. It's truly a shift in understanding our own inherent potential.
Okay, so if consciousness is indeed this hyperdimensional geometric matrix, the natural next question is, how could this actually manifest physically? Like, where does a rubber meet the road in our biology? This is where the PSUMOT framework brilliantly integrates crucial quantum biological processes. And these are absolutely essential for actualizing such an intricate, hyperdimensional matrix within living systems like our brains. It's not just abstract math floating around, it needs a physical home, right? First, let's consider biophoton networks. It's now pretty well established that biological tissues aren't just inert stuff. They constantly emit coherent streams of photons, light particles, often showing quantum entanglement properties. These biophotons aren't random. They seem to operate along specific geometric pathways, forming intricate fiber optic channels within our bodies, complete with precise angular relationships. These intricate light-speed networks could literally form part of a living geometric matrix, an informational scaffold, operating at a quantum level within our biological systems. Imagine your body bathed in a complex, geometrically ordered field of light, carrying information. Second, we look at microtubule quantum coherence. Microtubules are these tiny cylindrical protein structures found everywhere in neurons and really all complex cells. They possess a distinctive helical lattice structure, which strikingly exhibits topological properties similar to higher dimensional inversive geometries. What's more, groundbreaking research recently confirmed superradiance in tryptophan networks within these microtubules. Superradiance is a quantum effect where atoms act together, emitting light coherently and intensely. This demonstrates pretty unequivocally that biological structures can indeed maintain quantum coherence with geometric organization. This provides a compelling physical implementation for such a geometric matrix. It means our cells, especially neurons, have the machinery to sustain geometrically organized quantum states, a direct physical basis for consciousness operating hyperdimensionally. It's like discovering the tiny struts in a skyscraper are themselves tiny quantum computers. And third, there's the remarkable discovery of quantum entanglement in myelin sheaths. Myelin, that fatty insulation wrapped around nerve fibers that speeds up signals. It's been shown to exhibit quantum entanglement through vibrations. This isn't just a curious detail. It profoundly implies that our neural networks possess inherent quantum geometric properties that go beyond just classical electrical signaling. This provides a tangible physical basis for non-local consciousness. The idea that conscious information isn't strictly confined to one point, but can operate through these quantum geometric relationships, connecting different parts of the brain in a highly integrated, non-local way, potentially even extending beyond the brain itself through quantum mechanics.
Wow, this is truly where biology and advanced geometry merge in the most astounding way. It's an incredibly surprising fact that the very structures within our brain, from the way light might orchestrate things in tissues, to quantum states in microtubules, to entanglement in nerve insulation, might be operating on principles that echo these higher dimensional geometries. It's almost as if our minds are pre-wired, equipped with the fundamental biological hardware to access, navigate, and maybe even create these intricate geometric realities. This, for me, really bridges the gap between the philosophical musings of Blake and McKenna and the hard, measurable realities of physics and biology.
Yeah, and it's absolutely crucial to emphasize that these are not just speculative ideas conjured out of thin air. There is serious pioneering work in mathematics and theoretical physics that provides strong theoretical foundations for this geometric view of consciousness. We're standing on the shoulders of giants, so to speak. For instance, consider the remarkable contributions of Gustav Brunreuter. His work directly applies inversive geometry to consciousness itself. He uses conformal transformations between physical domains, those are transformations that preserve angles locally, and integrates non-orientable surface geometry, specifically things like Mobius strips, a surface with only one side. Bernreuther uses these tools to achieve continuous inversion while conserving certain quantities. This is precisely the kind of sophisticated mathematical framework needed to model how consciousness can undergo radical shifts, like flipping inside out, yet maintain essential informational properties and a sense of continuity. It's about how information can be transformed structurally without being lost. Then there's the equally compelling projective consciousness model, PCM. This model uses projective transformations in 4x4 matrices. It sounds technical, but basically it's a mathematical way to model perspective. And it successfully models complex and often mysterious aspects of conscious experience. Things like perspective taking, which is fundamental to our reality, but also more extraordinary experiences like out-of-body experiences and various kinds of spatial phenomena. Projective geometry itself is about properties that stay the same even when you project them, like casting a shadow. It offers a powerful way to describe how different viewpoints on reality can be related. These rigorous mathematical approaches taken together really underscore how consciousness can be conceptualized not merely as some mysterious black box, but as a dynamic geometric matrix, one that can be precisely described, analyzed, and maybe even predicted through mathematical rigor. This moves the study of consciousness squarely into the realm of scientific inquiry, allowing us to ask not just what if, but how does it actually work mathematically?
Right, and for you, the listener, this is a truly critical takeaway. This isn't just some fringe idea born from esoteric musings or anecdotes. Serious mathematicians and physicists are actively exploring how geometry might be fundamental, not just incidental, to consciousness itself. They're providing the kind of theoretical bedrock and the conceptual toolkit that could lead to genuinely groundbreaking discoveries in the future, offering a new language to understand our most profound inner experiences. It's really a testament to the sheer power of mathematics to describe the seemingly indescribable and to unite different fields of knowledge. So, okay, we've established that consciousness could be this incredibly complex, hyperdimensional geometric matrix, and our brains might even have the quantum biological hardware to handle these transformations. Now, the obvious question comes up. If these alternate realities exist, how do dreams and the vast landscape of the unconscious become the key to finding it, to unlocking these states or accessing that elusive mirror world? How do these states, which often feel so unstructured, so personal, sometimes just utterly bizarre, how do they relate to such precise geometric shifts? What's the mechanism that makes them a gateway?
This is where the concept of circle inversion offers a beautifully precise mathematical mechanism for perspective transformation. Dreams are perhaps the most universal and, well, readily accessible example of this. When we enter a dream state, our fundamental sense of self, our environment, even the very laws of physics that govern waking reality can shift dramatically. We might find ourselves flying, talking to objects, seeing the world from a completely different viewpoint, maybe even being someone else entirely. This mechanism of inversion allows for what we describe as radical shifts in the nature of conscious experience, while, and this is the crucial part, importantly maintaining informational coherence. What that means is, even though your dream world might feel completely alien, fantastical, maybe nonsensical on the surface, the underlying information, the emotional truths, the structural relationships within that experience are actually preserved. So, the key, whether we're talking about the natural state of dreaming, dedicated practices like deep meditation, or even the controlled use of substances like DMT, essentially facilitates a geometric reorganization of consciousness. It's not simply a random scramble of information or some chaotic breakdown. Instead, it systematically changes the observer's perspective, allowing conscious access to the mirror world or the deeper, often hidden layers of the unconscious. To illustrate this flip, imagine something you perceived as external in your waking life, maybe a difficult situation, a challenging person, becomes deeply internalized within the dream. It transforms into a symbol, an archetype, or an internally generated world that feels externally real within the dream itself. Conversely, internal thoughts and feelings, deep fears, desires, unresolved conflicts, might be projected outwards as vivid characters, landscapes, or scenarios in the dream. This isn't just a metaphor for dreams, it's a dynamic, reversible, geometric transformation of perspective. And circle inversion provides the exact mathematical language to describe and understand it. Hashtag tag 3.2. Information preservation and continuity of self. Okay, this brings us to a truly critical insight, one that addresses some of our deepest existential questions, the conformal or angle-preserving properties of circle inversion. This is the bedrock, really, that ensures information preservation during consciousness transitions. Even when consciousness undergoes the most radical transformations, flipping into a mirror world, exploring the depths of the unconscious, or indeed what we might perceive as ultimate transitions like birth and death, essential structural relationships maintain their configuration. To give you an intuitive analogy again, imagine stretching and distorting a rubber sheet with a perfect grid and maybe a triangle drawn on it. While the lines might curve and the triangle sides might stretch, the angles within that triangle and between the grid lines where they meet will remain exactly the same. The overall shape might change dramatically, but its fundamental angular relationships, its internal coherence, persists. This means that fundamental aspects of conscious experience, such as the angular relationships between conscious elements, how different ideas, memories, emotions, or perceptions relate to each other in terms of their, let's say, orientation or connection, remain constant, despite profound shifts in the overall content or form of perception. This is absolutely key to enabling continuity of self-awareness and memory through such deep state changes. It prevents a complete and utter loss of self. It assures us that even if your experience is profoundly altered, you might dream you're a talking fish or find yourself in an alien landscape, the core you and the essential information that defines your identity, your personality, your learned patterns are not erased, but rather reconfigured in a structured, mathematically coherent way. The transformation respects the fundamental informational blueprint of who you are. Furthermore, circle inversion possesses this remarkable involution property. If you apply the inversion operation twice, you always return precisely to the original state. It flips, then it flips back. This is highly significant because it suggests that consciousness transitions are fundamentally reversible. The mirror world, or the unconscious state, therefore, isn't some chaotic abyss. It holds complete and perfectly preserved information to reconstruct the original state of consciousness. This strongly supports the idea of a key that can both unlock and relock these states, implying a complete reversible informational mapping between different conscious realities. Your journey into the unconscious, or any profound altered state, isn't a one-way trip into oblivion. There's an inherent mechanism for return and reintegration, ensuring that the informational content of your experience remains intact and accessible. It's like having a perfect backup file of your conscious state, mathematically guaranteed.
Wow, that is truly an aha moment. It speaks to our deepest anxieties about identity and memory, doesn't it? Even in the most wildly transforming dream where everything feels different, where you might be flying or living another life, your essential self, the underlying informational structure that defines your unique patterns of thought and feeling, might be perfectly coherent and preserved. It means your mind isn't just making things up randomly. It's actively transforming existing information in a structured, mathematically coherent way.